Welcome, students. This is Antioch University, 5420, the healthcare sector as a complex system. It's going to be presented in fall of 2021. My name is Ron Kapp, and I will be your instructor for the next 7 weeks. That's me sitting on my mountain in Oregon, taking a little rest and relaxation and having a good time. I want to present a brief overview right here with the course. It's a 7-week asynchronous course going to be presented online, as you know. And you do not have to attend the live question and answer sessions that I will discuss in a minute. But basically, the first week, which is this week, is an overview entitled A Brief History of Time. Next week, we'll talk about the physicians as the starring role. The third week, we'll talk about hospitals, the driver of the economic engine. Fourth week, we'll head into the insurance conundrum that exists in America. I call it the bottleneck. And we'll talk about the pharmaceutical industry, drugs for profit, we call it. And then towards the end of the course, week 6, we'll get into the management, how C-suite MBAs interact with this healthcare system, and that's why you're taking this course. What you can do to make this a better medical system. And then week 7 will be some of the solutions that we will have encountered over the course of these past 7 weeks. The objective of this course is really just for me to present an overview of the medical profession. I have been a practicing emergency room physician for over 30 years. I hate to think how long that's been. I've been in 25 different hospital systems in my career, primarily as a clinician, but also as an administrator. I've been the medical director for many different hospitals over the years. I was also the medical director for the National Park Service for 5 years at Yosemite. I wrote the RM51, which is the Emergency Medicine Manual for the National Park Service. It turns out that the NPS does provide a lot of medical care, which I was unaware of until I worked there. The goal of this course is to give you a very fine overview, not a comprehensive, but something you can rest your hat on as what is going on in the systemic system that we call America's healthcare system. You all know it's a problem. You all know it's in crisis. And then we'll talk about some potential solutions, which I will come up with and which you will also come up with. Solutions are the key, of course. That's the objective of the course. We'll see how good I do over the next 7 weeks. And hopefully I'll do a good job here. The operational details of 5420, you can get them on your syllabus also, but basically it's an online asynchronous meeting. Every week I will present a brief lecture, such as this one, a PowerPoint with a little audio attached to it. I hope I keep it brief. It's a 15-week course crammed into the 7 weeks that we have together. So the goal is to have you spend 15 to 20 hours a week studying the course with me. Immediately following these PowerPoint presentations, there will be a short question and answer session for those students who want to go on Zoom and be live with me. Hopefully they'll be on Mondays, but we'll see how that works out. I'm here for you, so if it needs to change, we can change. You will also have out-of-class assignments, various readings, TED Talks, YouTube videos. But the real key to this course is the active forum discussion. You already know what these are like. This is very much like you've done in all your other courses at Antioch. You will post, repost, respond to posts. You will become tired of posting, I know, but we'll do it anyway. I think it's a great way to have you think, and it will make us a learning community. This week, week 1, I'm going to have you do a concise video presentation of who you are and why you're here. I'll give a little demonstration later and tell you about more details there. We'll do some videos in this course. We'll do some writings in this course also. I think writing is good. Videos are good. If you have an interview for a job in the future, I guarantee you will have video interviews. You have written interviews. I have even had to have taken tests for job interviews. I'll be available by email. Also, we will have Zoom sessions. You already know how to use Zoom, probably much better than I do. And of course, there will be a grade. This is a credit, no credit class. Some students do need an A, B, C grade, and that will be discussed more in the full syllabus. These are just some of the operational details that we're going through. Course evaluations, of course, are very important. I'll be evaluating you based on your videos, your readings, your writings. I have a quiz. I'm going to give a quiz every week, 10 very simple, fundamental, elementary, multiple choice questions. If you did the videos, listen to the PowerPoint, read some of the readings that I might recommend, you'll do fine on the quiz. It's not difficult. It's just one way for us to evaluate and also be sure you're doing the work. The real goal, my goal, you're going to hear this all the time, is CANI. C-A-N-I, continuous and never-ending improvement. That is my motto. You're going to get tired of hearing that motto, but I love it. I just love it so much. This is a required course, as we said, in the healthcare track. And the reason I think it's required is, you're an MBA student, you will soon be in a position of authority in some hospital, clinic, university facility, who knows where. But you need some words on which to hang your hat on. And that is what we're going to present in this course. You'll be prepared on day one to walk into a job and say, hey, I know about these things. I know about this. I know about that. And the this and that is what this course is about. And of course, you'll have an opportunity to evaluate your instructor, Dr. Ron Kapp. MBA students have to have certain competencies, as everyone in the world does. There are 3 that I like to think about. Inspiration. You have to have passion for whatever you're doing in life. If you don't have passion, you're not going to go that far. Passion is what drives everything. My passion is CANI, continuous and never-ending improvement. I told you. The second thing you have to have as an MBA student is some information. And that's what this course is going to provide you, some information. But the most important thing, the critical component of your competency as a student, is the application. That's where the forum discussion comes into play, but that's where it comes into play of a job also. So these are the 3 competencies that we'd like to get you to really focus on for life in general, but this course in particular. Okay, let's go on to what we really need to know, the foundational learning questions for week 1 of 5420, your course. I'm just your instructor. You're the one who's learning. What I want you to do this week is to prepare a video, not very long. Let's get to know each other. You are getting to know me right now, and you're looking at a PowerPoint presentation, but you can't see me. I would like to see you, and we'll see each other in Zoom, so it's not critical that we have a video for this. But the questions I want you to answer are 6-fold. Who are you today? Your background. What motivates you? Your passion. Who do you wish to be? In other words, why you get up in the morning? What is your passion? Again, passion, passion, passion. Passion for the future. Then the real question is, why are you not there yet? Well, you're a student. Next one is, what are you waiting for? Well, you're not waiting. You're a student. And of course, what do you want from this class? Video presentations are critical. Recently, I had to do several on the internet, audio, video, and they asked me these questions. I was a little bit dumbfounded because I'm not accustomed to live presentations or video, PowerPoints or anything like that. But if you go to a conference, you'll have to prepare PowerPoint presentations with audio, with video. So if I had to return to another interview again, I would come up with, first off, a motto, M-O-T-T-O. Who is Ron Kapp? My motto is very brief. It's 5 words. I would say, quote, autistic kid graduates from medical school. I guess that's 6 words, sorry. You say, what? That stimulates the idea in your brain of, wait a minute, who is this guy, Ron Kapp, autistic kid, graduates from medical school? Well, let me tell you a story about Ron Kapp. I was autistic for the first 5 years of my life. I spent in a rocking chair, wore the same clothes every day. I went into kindergarten when I was 5 years old. I didn't know what was going on. I was flabbergasted, like, whoa, who are all these people? And they're all talking. I didn't talk much. Years went on. I'm in the 8th grade. We moved. Then I'm in a new school, and the gym teacher realized I was introverted and shy, and that wonderful gym teacher wanted to make me feel better. So he had me wrestle the weakest other kid in school. Yes, I wrestled him for 10 seconds. He pinned me to the mat within those time frame. And I then had the moniker of the weakest kid in school. I'm in 8th grade. I'm the weakest kid. I was autistic. I didn't have a good background. That was the year I encountered the Japanese philosophy of kanai, continuous and never-ending improvement. I went home that week, started doing push-ups, pull-ups, lifting weights, started hitting a tennis ball against the basement wall, and the rest is history. Here I am talking to MBA students as your instructor. Before I got to this point, I did, of course, work as an emergency room physician after going to college, graduate school, medical school, internship, residency, all these things. But it was those early years that drove me to say, I am a person who wants to have continuous and never-ending improvement. And that's why I'm here. That's what I want from this class, from myself also. I want to learn from you. You're the next generation, and I can learn much from you, and hopefully you'll learn much from me. So that, I think, would be considered my foundational pitch. You're getting to know me. You're thinking, wow, Dr. Ron is autistic. Dr. Ron was the weakest kid in school. Dr. Ron is going to be teaching me the MBA. Yes, this is true. And you'll get to know me a little better, of course, as we go along. But that's what I want you to do. Some type of brief introduction like that. It doesn't have to be emotional. It's whatever you want to do so that other students can get to know you and you can get to know other students so that we can have a lively and robust forum discussion. Now, as a MBA, you're going to be entering the medical world. Maybe, maybe not, but I'm assuming you are. And success in the medical world is driven by, I think, 4 factors. Number 1, being an individual. Number 2, being a team player. Number 3, being brave in the face of adversity. And it's also a conservative profession. So what do I mean by all these? Well, as an individual, you have to make your own decisions. Let me tell you a story about this. See, I love stories. We love stories, which makes these PowerPoints much more entertaining and memorable, I'll say. My story for being an individual and being a team player, of course. I finished medical school in Texas. At that time, you can get a medical license to practice the profession right out of medical school. Well, of course I did. Why not? So I went to an emergency room. A friend of mine got me a job, and I'm in the call room waiting, and a nurse calls me and says, Dr. Kapp, there's a patient with chest pain here. Oh, man, I don't know. Okay, I run down there. There's a patient with chest pain. I'm looking at the patient's looking at me, and I'm thinking, uh-oh, now what do? I just finished medical school, but I didn't know what to do. And there's quiet. I'm looking at the nurse is looking at the patient, I'm looking at the patient, we're looking at each other. The nurse, bless her heart, comes to my rescue. She was a team player. She said, Dr. Kapp, would you like to give this patient some morphine? No, the patient's having chest pain. So I furrow my brow like the good physician would do and say, that's a very good idea, nurse. let's give this patient some morphine. And I stopped. The nurse is still looking at me. She looks down and she furrows her brow and she says, Dr. Kapp, shall I give the patient 2 milligrams of IV morphine? I'm thinking, oh dear me. I'm processing in my brain the dosage of morphine, the route of administration of morphine. Now remind you, I'm just out of medical school. I don't know that much. I look up at her. I give a nod of my head, very professionally like, as I tug on my stethoscope. Yes, nurse, why don't you give her 2 milligrams of morphine IV intravenously? She sort of chuckles under her breath. Thank you, doctor. And she does. And the point of the story is I was being an individual making my own decisions, but I needed a team player. But I was brave in the face of adversity. I had controlled fear. Now, I'm going to let you in on a small secret. Controlled fear in an emergency room is what I do best. I've been doing it for 30 years plus. I'm still sweating bullets, but the patients never know. And I do a good job of it too. And the fourth success paradigm here is it's a conservative profession. Yes, we don't like change. Medicine does not like change, as you will learn in this course over the next 6-7 weeks. However, medicine relies on science, as we will discuss today. And science, as you well know, is expanding exponentially. And the doctor has to keep up. That's one of the keys that drives success. If you don't keep up, in my field, even in your field, you're not going to survive very well. So these are the 4 keys for success in the medical world. A little long-winded, but I liked my story, and I hope that impresses you about the success elements that you need for this course, for life, for success in the world. So let's start with week 1. Yeah, you thought I was almost done, didn't you? We're just starting. A brief history of time. That's what I call week 1. Hippocrates. Let us start with Hippocrates, thousands of years ago. Now, you know him. He said many things. One of the things Hippocrates did say was, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. We will return to that. Every doctor, when they graduate, typically takes the Hippocratic Oath. And in that oath is do no harm. The question today is that still valid in the 21st century? Do no harm. Now, this is going to be a forum discussion question for this week. And you can answer it any way you want. You see, medicine has the development of a very complex system with special interests, politics, economics, the social class differences, cultural things, and it's expanding exponentially, as we just talked. It's internet driven. There's research and development. There's longevity, patient wellness, all these things that are driving medicine into the future. But the basic question of do no harm, is that still valid today? And I will let you answer that, because it's a critical question. And as an MBA, you're in a position of power in the future. A position of power such that you are making many decisions. And some of your decisions could theoretically cause harm. Unintended consequences. And that's what this course is about, to examine the system of medicine. We're not going to talk about Hippocrates very much. What we're going to talk about is the brief history of medicine. And how do you distill down thousands of years? I did it in a couple slides here. American medicine really arose from European medicine. And European medicine was far advanced. Early on in our country, almost every doctor went to Europe for training. The oldest medical school that is still active is in France, Montpellier. In 1137 they started, and they're still going. I went to Europe for several years to do a postdoctoral fellowship in sports medicine. And interestingly, all the people I encountered were most impressed by American medicine today. In that time, it was the 20th century. Everybody wanted to come to America to practice medicine. But back during the Revolutionary War, no, we went to Europe. After the Revolutionary War, I don't want to go to Europe, so we started having medical schools in the United States. They flourished. To become a doctor at that time, it was very easy. There were no preliminary tests, no pre-med MCAT tests. There were no USMLE medical licensing exams. You had to take 2 courses of lectures of 4 months each, write a short thesis, probably less than what you will write in this course, and you were called a doctor. You were also called a barber. Barber school and doctor schools were sort of the same. Well, in the period of 1835 to 1847, there was a tremendous revolutionary change in medicine. And it culminated in the founding of the American Medical Association in 1847. You say, well, why do I care about the American Medical Association of 1847? Well, number one, they still exist. Number two, I'm a member of the AMA. And number three, the AMA is the most powerful lobby in Washington, D.C., as they lobby Congress with all their money. But it started in 1847 and it continues up until this current time and is growing stronger every year. So you need to know a little bit about this. I guarantee if you tell anyone, well, you know, the AMA was founded in 1847, you're going to be very impressive. But that time period was very, very important in America because there was a revolution. And it all started back in 1765, right before our republic was founded, by a doctor named John Morgan, who did train in Scotland, by the way. And he was an army surgeon. In fact, he was George Washington's army surgeon. And he didn't like what was happening in America. He said, we only have 3,500 doctors in America, which again are really barbers, because it was easy to become a doctor. So Dr. Morgan founded the University of Pennsylvania, the Perelman School, in 1765, which is America's oldest medical school. Now, sit back in your chairs as you're listening to Dr. Ron tell you about this history and contemplate what that meant. That wasn't very long ago. 200 years plus was our first medical school. And it wasn't very good, but University of Pennsylvania now is a great school, one of the best. So it's a very recent profession in America. In fact, it's so recent that it really changed dramatically in 1910 with the Flexner Report. That you must remember, not for me, but for the future. Abraham Flexner. He was hired by the Carnegie Foundation, I believe, to evaluate all the medical schools in America. And he then prepared a report. And he was well respected, and his report basically said that the biomedical model of medicine should become the gold standard for medical training. And it also included a supplement that said all medical schools at that time, 1910, should be attached to a university, such as Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Chicago, wherever. Well, because the Flexner Report was so popular and so well researched, 75% of all U.S. medical schools closed. Yes, those that were offering that short course, become a doctor and a barber at the same time, they closed. They had to. Because he said, look, it's a biomedical model. We have to function under the auspices of science. Well, that's great, except there wasn't much science back then, but he could see the future. He said the biomedical model is the key. So that went on. There was another very important development that happened in Dallas, Texas. Now, I work in Dallas, Texas, in an emergency room. I work for this facility called Baylor University. It's now called Baylor Scott and White. Well, back then, in the early 1900s, the Texas Baptist Memorial Sanitarium was founded for a grand total of $50,000. There's a picture of it. And it has subsequently become Baylor University Medical Center in downtown. But Baylor is now expanded, and they have hospitals all over the state of Texas. But this facility offered the very first insurance plan in America. It was a $6 a year. Did you hear that? $6 a year to the local teachers union. It took effect 1 week, so there was a 1-week delay, and it covered 100% of all hospitalizations. At that time, hospitals cost $5 a day, and it covered them for 21 days. You say, well, why 21 days? Well, because there wasn't much science back then in the early 1900s. You were either dead after 21 days, or you were cured by that time with the science of the 1900s. That was the first insurance plan in America. Think about that. $6 a year, 1 week waiting period, 100% hospitalization coverage. Why did that develop at that time? Because then people were going bankrupt from medical care. They couldn't pay the $5 a day. They were in there for 10 days. That's $50. That was a lot of money in the 1900s. They went bankrupt. So this was a charity by the Texas Baptist Memorial, a charity solution. They took everyone. That's interesting. A charity. They weren't out to make money. They were out to help people and prevent bankruptcies. Think about that for a minute. I'm going to pause here briefly and then go to the next slide, of course, because that's an incredible concept, a charity. But that insurance model spread like wildfire. Yes, people thought, charity, a few dollars a year, prevent bankruptcy. This is a good social contract. By 1939, over 3 million people had signed up. Well, of course, they was renamed then the Blue Cross plans. The goal was not to make money, but was to protect patients and also keep the nonprofit hospitals financially stable. Yes, that's your job as an MVA in the future, to keep hospitals financially stable. But we'll come back to that throughout this course. So that's how it all started. That's how insurance started. And we're going to spend a whole week on insurance. It's going to be much more exciting than this. But it spread like wildfire. In fact, it spread by such wildfire that it just exploded. And why did it explode? It exploded because science changed the insurance model. Technology advances. I call it silver bullet medicine. Silver bullet medicine. Wow. What does that mean? I know you're thinking Roy Rogers and the silver bullet. No. Silver bullet medicine is the concept of one pill, one disease, one patient, 15-minute office visit. That's what silver bullet medicine means. You say, wait a minute, what's going on here? Well, think about it. Insulin was discovered in 1922 by Frederick Banting. You don't have to remember that. But he would treat DKA patients, diabetic ketoacidosis patients. These are young children typically who have diabetes. They have no pancreas to speak of. Their islets of Langerhans, their beta cells do not produce insulin. Therefore, their blood sugar skyrockets. They become very sick. We used to call it DKA. He's in DKA. We still do it. The insulin that they were giving then would cure people. It's the same insulin we give today. So that's silver bullet medicine. Another one was anesthesia. The very first anesthesia was in the 1930s. Now think about it. That wasn't very long ago. Before the 1930s, if you were in pain, had to have an operation of some sort. Yeah, you've seen it in the movies. They bite a bullet. I call it the silver bullet there. Thiopental was the very first IV anesthesia. Again, you do not need to remember that, but it's a concept. Wow, IV anesthesia, 1930s. Penicillin is critical. Penicillin really was the critical driver for silver bullet medicine. Sir Alexander Fleming was looking in his petri dishes on a fungus growth and discovered penicillin in the year 1928. It was not really used in patients until 1941, World War II. Holy cow. Think about that. That was just a few years ago when penicillin was invented. The real first truly miracle medication invented by science. And that changed everyone's perception of how the doctor was perceived, how hospitals were perceived. It changed everything. And then, of course, the first ICU was opened in the 1940s. Everyone knows about ICUs now because of the COVID crisis. ICUs fill up with COVID patients. Oh, that didn't have those until the 1940s. So this concept, and this is what the take-home of this slide is, silver bullet medicine still exists today. Patients want to be cured. We have two models of medicine in America. What I call the allopathic model that I practice in the emergency room. I ask, what is wrong with this patient and what pill, potion, or surgery does this patient need? And that still is valid. Nothing wrong with that. I still practice emergency medicine. There's a second model in America today that asks a different question. It does not ask what disease that the patient has, but this model, the second model, asks a question of why, W-H-Y. Why is this patient sick in the first place? Totally different questions. And the second model, the why model, is becoming very popular. That's the model of integrative or holistic medicine. We call it functional medicine by the Institute of Functional Medicine now. And many, many, hundreds, if not thousands of doctors are going to study functional medicine, asking why. It's asking the root cause. What is wrong with this patient? Why is this patient sick? Why do they have the disease process in the first place? And that's a critical distinction, and we'll come back to that throughout this course. Unfortunately, as usual, politics intervenes. Yes, politics. We know all about that now. And during World War II, in fact, it started in World War I, but in World War II, there was a National War Labor Board, which froze the salaries during and after the war. I was unaware of this. Well, if you're a company and you want to get new workers, you can't offer them more. You can't offer them a raise. So what did companies do? They offered health insurance instead. Remember the health insurance that started with the Texas Baptist to attract labor. What a brilliant solution. Companies worked around. They worked within the system. Key is here to remember, work within the system. You can massage the system. They did that. World War II, and they offered health insurance. What they offered was major medical hospital catastrophic insurance to mitigate, once again, the financial disaster. What a brilliant solution. So right away, we're talking World War II, we started integrating science with the doctors, with the pharmaceuticals, because of penicillin and thiopental in the ICUs, with the hospitals, with the insurance plan, and politics. And that's why I wanted to present the history of medicine a little bit to you, because knowing this, how it sort of developed over the past many years, but really not that many, you can get a better appreciation of today's current healthcare problems, because you will be looked on upon as an expert. And as an MBA expert, you will be making decisions that will affect all of those different types of system components. You will be the expert. There was another expert, Walter Cronkite. You've never heard of him probably because you're too young. Walter Cronkite was on TV. He was CNN and Fox News personified. However, Walter Cronkite told the truth. Everyone trusted Walter Cronkite. He was the most trusted name in news. And if Walter Cronkite said it was true, it was true. Back then, if Blue Cross offered hospital insurance, it was great. If Blue Shield, which was the doctor visit portion of Blue Cross, it was great. It helped patients. So Blue Cross, Blue Shield were the Walter Cronkite of American healthcare. And what happened between the 1940s and the 1950s, and that time, 1960s, the number of Americans with health insurance boomed. It grew. It grew and grew. It went from 10% to 60%. Can you imagine? 1955, 60% of Americans had health insurance. That's incredible. Who would have thought? Mainly because we trusted people. That's the point of the slide. However, as usual, money intervened. Yes, The business opportunity. America is capitalistic. Now, I believe in the free market. I believe in capitalism with all my heart. And you're in the MBA world where the free market and capitalism rules. But the business opportunity was very profound. Now, remember, this is an overview of your course. What happened in this business opportunity of medicine was for-profit insurance companies arose. And what they did, obviously, good business move, they accepted only younger, healthier patients. And they charged different rates, they offered different types of policies, and they changed the levels of protection. By 1951, not that long ago, Aetna and Cigna both offered major medical coverage. So throughout the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, the private for-profit insurance companies gained market share. Well, sure, why wouldn't they? It's capitalism. We love capitalism. This is America, the land of opportunity. I love America. However, the Blues, the Blue Cross, the Blue Shield, they were still a charity. They were hemorrhaging money. They were going down the tubes. And that then led to what you would call a business theory problem. In other words, business theory problem. In other words, how does a not-for-profit charity insurance plan compete with the free market insurance company? Tough thing to do. This is a forum discussion question for the week. We talked about, remember, Hippocrates, number 1. Do we still do no harm? Number 2, how does a not-for-profit charity insurance plan compete? You know, if you're a for-profit company, you can advertise. You have a different payer mix. In other words, you can accept young people who aren't sick. You can have different tax structures. You can have different innovative therapies like MRI machines that cost millions of dollars, or CT scans or SPECT scans. You can have robotic surgery. How does a charity buy those? Because a charity doesn't have that money. So charities were really hurting. And the Blues, of course, realized charities were really hurting. And because charities were hurting so much, even the Blue Cross Blue Shield realized we have to do something. So in 1994, the Blue Board of Directors voted to go for profit. They were renamed WellPoint. They bought out, let me repeat that, they bought out a dozen other Blues in other states. Conglomeration was starting in the 94s. Today, the Blues are the second largest insurer, but this is changing all the time. Aetna, Kaiser, HCA, all these different people. And then in 2014, in order to keep up with the times for public relations, the Blues changed their name again to Anthem Blue Cross. Nostalgia, because people remembered the Blues. So you can see what's happening here, that things are changing as they go. Insurance really is critical. So let's talk about insurance a little bit. There's a term called the medical loss ratio, MLR. The medical loss ratio, I doubt an MBA has heard of this. I had never heard of it as a practicing ER doctor, but it is the amount of money, the insurance premium that is spent on medical care for patient care. So in 1993, while they were still a charity, the Blues spent 95 cents of every dollar on patient care, their MLR, their medical loss ratio. However, to increase profit, there are other things that companies have to do, even charities have to do. They have to advertise, they have to lobby, they have a lot of administrative overhead. And if you're a for-profit company, you have to pay out dividends, of course. So the end result was the medical loss ratio changed. By 1910, the medical loss ratio for the Texas Blues was 64%. In other words, only 64 cents out of every dollar that they received in premiums was spent on patient care. The other 36% was spent for overhead. As an MBA, I think you can see right away, these are not good numbers. It's not a survival there. And we're going to talk more about medical loss ratios in the fourth week when we talk about insurance. It's critical, though. To what happened in 2010, we all remember now the Affordable Care Act, often called Obamacare. And Obamacare did two things. Number one, it changed the medical loss ratio that we were just talking about and said, as a statutory rule, it had to be 80 to 85% of every premium dollar is spent on patient care. This is a good thing. And it also, ACA also said, you have to cover pre-existing illnesses, pre-existing disease processes. For example, if you have diabetes, what insurance company wants you because you're an expensive patient, therefore they would deny you. But now with insulin, what we talked about earlier, diabetes is a curable, a controllable, curable disease maybe, and maybe a little easier to insure. The other thing the ACA did, you're eligible for tax credits to lower your premiums. If you're single and your annual 2020 income, for example, it was between $12,000 and $49,000, or if your household income was between $21,000 and $85,000 for a family of three, then they lower the limits in some states and have all these different formulas depending on where you live and who you are. So it's a key component now, and it unfortunately has become a political issue between Republicans, Democrats, socialists, other parties, and I don't want to get into politics if I can help it. Never want to get into politics, especially in a course. But we have to know about the ACA because it's part of the system of healthcare that is driving the future. But the future is not here yet, it's coming. But let's back up a little bit to 1965. That was a great year. I was a youngster. I remember it well. In fact, it was July 30th. I don't remember that, but it was July 30th, 1965. President Johnson signed into law the Medicare and the Medicaid bills. Medicare was for the elderly. Medicaid was for the poor. And this was a social contract between the United States government and patients. Medicare, Medicaid. These are federal programs. So the question is, what do you think the medical loss ratio is, even today, for the Medicare program? I did not know. Well, I know one thing. I know one thing, and that one thing is that the normal body temperature of a human is 98 degrees. Yeah, it's correct. The medical loss ratio for Medicare is 2%. In other words, they spend 98 cents of every dollar on patient care. They're doing great. Yes, great. Medicare is doing great. They spend only 2% on administrative overhead. Yeah, process that for a minute. I did not know this until I researched week one of this course. Wow. And Medicare starts when you're 65 years old. You get basically free medical care, although if you have income, you have to pay some premiums. And that's phenomenal. So a lot of private companies have to take their philosophical paradigm development, in other words, what MBAs do, from the Medicare plan. What Medicare does, private insurance companies sometimes have to do. And we'll talk more about that as they look at not just medical loss ratios, but also about DRGs, diagnostic related groups, different EMTALA requirements, different HIPAA requirements. It's all Medicare driven. The ICD-10 codes for the International Classification of Diseases, we'll talk about later. You don't need to know that yet. But Medicare is doing a good job. I did not know that. So what happens is that there's a domino in this healthcare, a domino effect in this healthcare field. The hospitals adapt to the financial incentives. Doctors charge whatever they have to. They change their practice. The drug and device manufacturers are always expanding exponentially with science. The pharmacies responded because of penicillin and all the other drugs that you see advertised on TV. Do you know, of course, there are only 2 countries in the world that allow medication advertisements on television? There's the United States And most interesting, there's New Zealand. New Zealand allows that, but no other country allows advertising of medications on television. Then the medical malpractice attorneys got involved with med-mal. That needs to be fixed. And of course, patients, that's why we're here, they were left confused, alone, and angry because of this domino effect in the healthcare. And this is our most complex healthcare system that you're going to study in this course over the next 7 weeks to say, how do all these different elements interact? The hospitals, the doctors, the drug and all these different things. And one affects the others just like a domino. Unravel the complexity. Week 1 review is there are many actors. It's a complex system. It's a large pie. Yes, you know it's a large pie. Current healthcare system is running about 3.5 trillion with a T, trillion dollars. That's nearly 20% of our gross domestic product. That's the part they analyze. I believe, and I have a belief that it's far more than $3.5 trillion. But nonetheless, it's called the business of medicine. The question then is, will it be your future? Will you be working in a hospital, a clinic, maybe a university, maybe some small office somewhere? Will you be in a large company? Will you be doing research and development? Will you be doing something on social media? I don't know what your MBA future holds for you. But the business of medicine is fantastic. It can be profitable. It needs to be changed, but it offers tremendous opportunity for the MBA student. The practice of medicine, what I do in the emergency room, is totally different than the business of medicine. Unfortunately, that causes lots of problems that we will analyze over the course of the next few weeks to say, what is the business of medicine and how does it impact the practice of medicine, what that Dr. Ron does. So your true course goal is to unravel the complexity of this system. And what I'm going to do is what we did today. I hope that was a relatively brief introduction, PowerPoint, to unravel the complexity of the MBA, because I'm assuming you don't have a detailed background of medicine. And then tell you a few stories like I did today. They'll get better, don't worry. And then when you finish this course, you'll have something that you can rely upon to talk intelligibly to other coworkers in your job of the future. Your weekly course assignments for the course, I would refer to the course syllabus, but basically it will be listen to this brief PowerPoint every week. We'll have a live Q&A right after this. You're not required to attend the live Q&A because I realize this is an asynchronous course. You will not be penalized for not showing up. But if you do show up for the live Q&A, then we can answer questions, talk about the PowerPoint, etc. You'll have some required readings. You'll have some TED Talks to listen to. I try and select interesting ones, and some YouTube videos. For this week, week 1, you have your personal video. Let's get to know each other. The 3 forum questions that I outlined during the PowerPoint. I'm not going to repeat them. The do no harm question. The how does a charity compete? Oops, and not supposed to repeat those, etc. They're in the syllabus. And then you'll have your, as I said, easy, brief, 10-point multiple choice quiz each week, just to focus and be sure that we're all on the same page, so to speak. Question and answer session will start shortly hereafter. This is week 1. It will be live on Zoom for those students who might want to and have the time frame to show up this week at this time. It will also be recorded for those of you who can't make the live session. And I reiterate the fact that you will not, NOT, I always say that, you will not be penalized if you cannot make the live session. I realize you have other responsibilities and duties. But I hope you can, because that's a time to interact. It's a time to review some of these PowerPoint issues that I brought up, such as maybe Well, what about that Flexner report? What about that Texas insurance plan at $6 a year? I mean, that's great. Well, $6 meant a lot then. So we can talk about those during the Q&A session. So my name is Dr. Ron Kapp. I hope you enjoyed this brief PowerPoint presentation with my audio for MBA students in 5420, and the year is 2021.